If a ghost shows up in a modern movie, you expect demonic possession or flying furniture. But for most of human history, a haunting looked less like a horror film and more like a frustrated neighbor demanding back rent. Across ancient civilizations, the goal of dealing with a spirit was rarely a dramatic exorcism to banish them into the void. The objective was to successfully negotiate a coexistence. Ancient hauntings operated under a strict, highly pragmatic social contract. The dead had demands, the living had obligations, and both sides were expected to pay up. To find the origin of this contract, we have to look back to the Neolithic era. Early humans were grappling with a primal, overwhelming fear regarding the absolute finality of death. Their solution to this fear is deeply unsettling to modern sensibilities. They buried the bodies of their deceased family members directly in the dirt beneath the floorboards of their own homes. As this cross-section of a Neolithic home illustrates, by keeping these skeletal remains physically close, the living attempted to appease the dead and maintain a degree of control over the terrifying unknown. This proximity forced the living to develop the first basic rules of coexistence. The dead became silent roommates, requiring specific behaviors and rituals to keep the peace. This domestic arrangement turned the care of the dead into a daily chore. By treating the deceased as permanent residents of the home, Neolithic families established the expectation of a lifelong debt, a concept that later states would expand into massive, complex afterlife bureaucracies. This imposing stone relief depicts the Queen of the Night ruling over the mythic scale of the Mesopotamian underworld. Her realm, called Irkalla, dismal, dusty wasteland. In stark contrast, the Egyptians envisioned an afterlife paradise known as the Field of Reeds. But both systems placed a heavy burden on the living. Looking at this intricately decorated Egyptian Shopti box and its accompanying mummy-form figurines, we can see the literal cost of the afterlife. The dead could only survive in these realms if their living relatives provided proper burials and daily offerings of water and food. When the living slacked off on those offerings, it triggered a breach of contract. The gods themselves would grant the neglected dead legal permission to return to the mortal realm and collect what they were. You didn't experience an haunting through spooky noises in the attic. You experienced it through tangible, physical damages, a sudden sickness, a failed crop, or a streak of terrible luck. A returning ghost acted exactly like a collection agency, violently enforcing an unpaid debt. If an ancient Egyptian found themselves cursed with this kind of bad luck, they didn't call a priest to bless the house. Instead, they took legal action and formally sued the ghost. This limestone stela of Pacer is a physical record of one such dispute. Widowers drafted formal letters to the dead, rigorously documenting their good behavior as a legal defense. Because these complaints were quite literally carved in stone, ghostly disputes became permanent public records. Over in ancient Rome, they settled the social contract through physical extortion payments during a festival known as Lemuria. At midnight, the Roman householder walked barefoot through his home, spitting black beans over his shoulder. The goal was to buy off the hungry, unseen spirits known as lemures, so they would take the food and leave the family alone. Whether you were filing an Egyptian lawsuit or throwing Roman beans, the underlying logic was identical. Ghosts were rational actors who could be reasoned, negotiated with, and bought off. But what happened in Mesopotamia when a ghost refused to honor the contract? Or was a stray spirit without a living family to pay its rent? Families hired an asapu, a specialized supernatural physician. As this taxonomic flowchart shows, the expert would forcibly evict the rogue spirit using strict categorization, identifying the ghost by its specific cause of death, such as drowning, fire, or childbirth. If categorization failed, they turned to the nuclear option, deploying amulets of actual demons to scare the lesser ghosts away. They used the terrifying visage of the demon Pazuzu, captured here in this bronze amulet. Its bulging eyes and grotesque fangs acted as a protective ward against any wayward spirits. Ancient magic was a highly structured legal system designed to strictly enforce the boundaries between worlds. Why did these rigidly identical rules for dealing with ghosts independently arise across so many unconnected ancient cultures? These stories were inherently didactic. They were designed as social tools to teach the living how to behave, rather than to terrify them with the unknown. The threat of a haunting acted as a social stabilizer, ensuring that families maintained tombs and fulfilled their generational duties to the deceased. It turned private remembrance into a public obligation. This system offered deep psychological comfort. By giving a ghost a specific, solvable demand, like a bowl of water or a handful of beans, humans turned the uncontrollable tragedy of death into a manageable transaction. We still tell ghost stories today because we need to believe that our relationships do not end at the grave. Deep down, we want to know that the living will still owe us something after we are gone.